everyone to today's masterclass about the Design Leadership Framework. My name is Katharina Koberdamm and I'm really excited to speak at Intersection Conference again. Before we dive into the framework, I want to give you a short overview of what's been happening in design over the past years. We have seen many important shifts that have affected the way design is integrated in organizations and the way we need to approach design leadership. The first shift I want to mention is the shift towards the experience economy. It is no longer enough to offer great products or services and to sell them with a traditional marketing approach. We live in what we call the experience era, where we as customers are seeking experiences instead of products. For example, we no longer buy an ordinary cup of coffee, but we want the pumpkin spice marshmallow latte and we want to drink it at a stylish coffee shop with nice music in the background. Even better would be to drink this coffee in our extraordinary holiday home that we booked with one click on Airbnb and to share a picture of us meditating in a waterfall later on that day. Of course, I am exaggerating, but the experience era certainly has affected the importance of a design-led approach for organizations and companies. The second shift I would like to mention is the shift to everything being connected and digital. We are in the middle of what is called the fourth industrial revolution, and this industrial revolution is characterized by cyber-physical systems. That means physical systems all being connected to the internet, being connected among each other. We are dealing with concepts such as artificial intelligence, biotech, robotics, autonomous vehicles, or Internet of Things. And this again is having a huge influence on the design in companies. More and more things need to be designed digitally. Processes, user journeys are becoming more and more digital. And this puts a lot of responsibility and of course a lot more work on design teams at organizations. Then we have seen the shift from classic to dynamic design. This is based on the 3 types of design by John Maeda, for those of you who are familiar with this. And design has moved very much from what we see as a classical design, something tangible, something beautiful, over being more interesting also as a process. Design as a process where we have, for instance, here the double diamond process, where we can tackle all sorts of challenges with design mindset and design approaches. And now, mostly when we look at design, especially in big organizations, it's not about classical design, but it's about dynamic digital design. And what does that mean? It means there is not this one design anymore that we can touch and that we can look at and that we can maybe as designers win awards for. But there is this ever-changing, agile display of design that even looks different for every user because we have targeted user experiences and personalized user experiences. So that was actually also a huge challenge for designers because they were kind of used to have something to show, something to be proud of, and now everything is fluid. So that is what happened in the actual design. And then we have seen from our agency will send over the designs. We have seen the whole development in the past years to building huge in-house design teams that typically work together with agile product teams. So again, a big shift, and also the need to build in-house design capability much more than we might have been having to do 10 years ago. And last shift I want to talk about is the shift from star designers to powerful teams. So back in the days, we had these figures that were like on top of the design scene, like Dieter Rams, Johnny Ive, or in Germany, Spiekermann, who shaped the design scene, who were kind of the creative heads in their companies and gave the creative direction to the whole team. Today, this is not so much the landscape we work in design. We have much bigger teams, we have more collaborative design in the design teams, and also collaborative creative direction. And what does that actually mean for design and organizations? That means we have much more designers working in an enterprise context, and we have, based on that, much more need for design leaders in organizations. So much more design leaders in organizations and more design teams. And this came with a lot of challenges. I conducted a survey last year among design leaders, and I asked them, what's your biggest challenge? And these were some of the typical answers I received. So they said, oh, it's really hard for me to gain and develop leadership skills. I have trouble driving change in the organization. I want to establish design in the organization. I don't know how to become visible in the organization. And I'm struggling to define vision and goals. And lastly, something I have heard over and over again, also in LinkedIn messages and other communication channels, how do I get started as a new design leader? And what is interesting about this is that the design leaders, they don't struggle with the actual design work. They didn't say, oh, we have trouble creating great UX. They mostly named struggles that are connected to business and leadership tasks. And that is actually no surprise, because the typical design leader doesn't have a strong background in business leadership or management. Now, I know this is a bold thesis to make, but it's also backed up by the Design and Tech report. And part of that is that leadership and management is not part of classic design education. It's becoming more and more a part of it, but the people that are learning it now in university are not the ones that are stepping into the leadership positions right now, because they have been trained 10 or 15 years ago. Then, if you just work as a designer, leadership and management is not that important. So in previous positions, before you become a design leader in an organization, you might not need these skills. And something I have noticed a lot is that sometimes I feel that design leaders don't know what they don't know. But what do I mean with that? So I have a background in business economics, and I had 4.5 years of extensive training in leadership and management topics. And so I know what is out there, what other departments do in the organization, what tools they use. And I sometimes have the feeling that designers stepping into leadership positions don't know that and start reinventing the wheel, where they could just ask someone from HR to help, or from finance or IT. This is something I noticed, and maybe it resonates with your experience, maybe it doesn't, we can discuss afterwards. So what do you do if you are a design leader and you want to level up and you want to learn more about this because maybe you didn't in your education? There's a whole bunch of stuff out there. We have blogs, videos, podcasts, online courses, all these things. But again, the question, where do I start? And what is important now? And this is kind of the situation where I was in 2 years ago, when I looked at the whole topic of design leadership, and I thought, I'm missing a better overview of design leadership tasks. Something where I can zoom out, take the bird's eye perspective on the topic, and then deep dive in topics that are interesting for me. So 2 years ago, I started working on the design leadership framework, and my goal was to structure the existing knowledge that is out there about design leadership and to create an overview of design leadership tasks. I wanted to, or I still want to, educate current and future design leaders, and I want them to focus on the right things. If you are interested how this whole research process went and how I came up with the framework, I would recommend to check out the talk from Intersection20 from 2 years ago, where I am describing this in great length. For now, we will just jump right into the framework. So this is the framework overview, and it just shows the 5 areas that are important in design leadership. So if you are a design leader in an organization, these are the 5 big areas you need to focus on. In the center, we have the strategy, and around that, we have the 4 areas: experience, operations, team, and enterprise. Now, I don't expect you to know immediately what is behind these areas, so I will walk through them one by one. Let's start with the strategy area. Strategy is all about defining and executing vision and strategy for the design team and the design work. So it's not only defining like how will the products look in the future, where do we want to develop this, but it's also about how do we want to develop the design capability in the enterprise, how do we want to develop as a team, what needs to happen so that we can, for instance, work better together or create better products. Typical aspects that a design leader has to deal with here are define the vision and goals, develop strategy and roadmap, manage program initiatives, drive change, and of course, measure the practice and performance. Now, this might be a little bit abstract now for you, so I have put some examples here that for tools that we are using in that area. So here you might find your vision statements, your roadmaps, your OKRs and goals, your project portfolios, communication plans for changes, KPIs and metrics, or dashboards. Next area I'm going to explain is the area of experience. Now this is all about the products and the services. So here, design leadership needs to envision and define what innovative design means for the enterprise and what it looks like. And aspects of the work that the design leadership team or the design leader needs to take care of here is to develop design principles, define design language, advocate the user perspective in the company and in the product development, promote end-to-end experience, drive innovation, and of course also provide creative guidance. Examples of stuff we are doing here is, for instance, design guidelines, design values. I think most of you have seen this type of things. Pattern libraries, journey maps, strategic design projects, storytelling, design thinking, or also in this area, we need to work closely with customer insights that will influence our strategic design decisions. Very closely related, but not the same, is the actual operations part. Operations is now the area of leadership where we take what we have decided on in the experience area and we want to operationalize that. So operations leadership defines the structures, processes, tools, and the work environment to support the delivery of day-to-day design work. So here you find all these topics around the org structure of the team, around the workflows and the project management of work streams. Here we look at the work environment, which for instance contains the tools that the designers work on and also how they are actually, what is their environment, so their office space or right now their remote collaboration space. Operations is also where we look at how we can ensure design coherence. So imagine 3 product teams working on different parts of the product. How can we ensure that what they create fits together and looks the same? And closely related are also the topics of knowledge and exchange and quality and compliance. Typical things we deal with here is project management, project plans, org charts, role descriptions, blueprints, file sharing, and so on. So I think this part, because this is, I think, very tangible, because this is not only something that design teams need, but every team needs this, every bigger team. And it's just the flavor that is different for a design team in the details. Moving to the team aspect. Imagine you have a design team at, for instance, Spotify with 200, 300, 400 designers. Now, you also have to take really good care of managing this team. So the team factor is all about managing and building the design team so that everyone stays motivated and can grow. And the aspects are dealing first about topics like the team culture, about giving feedback and guidance as a design leader, planning the staffing demand, managing recruiting and onboarding, but also taking care of the talent growth and reflecting your own leadership, because you don't only have to grow the talent in your team, but maybe also grow yourself as a design leader. And lastly, many design teams still also work with external partners and agencies, which also have to be managed. And this is a big area, and we have many examples of things we are doing as leaders, as managers of these teams. So for instance, design teams usually have a really strong meeting culture. Things like having a team coffee is part of that, installing design critique sessions is part of that, but also your one-on-one meetings with your employees or your yearly meetings are part of the team area. And things like creating an onboarding experience, working with a talent pool, or defining career paths, all these activities are in the area of team where the design leader of a bigger design team has to take care of. And I think this area is also a really good example to see that design leadership doesn't happen like in an isolated place, but especially here in the team area, the design leadership team of an organization really wants to work together, for instance, with HR to get really nice synergy effects. The last area is the enterprise area, and it's a really important area for design leadership. And this is kind of where it differentiates between good and great, I would say. The enterprise area means that the design leader needs to align and establish the design team with other business functions and stakeholders. And oftentimes, the higher you get in the design leadership team, for instance, if you're a head of design or VP design, then this is maybe all that you are doing. So you want to align your strategy with the business strategy, build alliances with other stakeholders, develop the design culture, promote the capabilities of your team so that it's seen as something useful and not just the team that makes things beautiful. And you also want to support enterprise challenges, so challenges outside of product development with design methodology. And examples of things that design leaders could do here are stakeholder analysis, alignment meetings, just something like having business lunch with other managers of the company, but also things like showcasing design work, design talks, internal blogs, and enterprise design. So taking design methods to not only shaping products, but the enterprise would also be living in this aspect. So I'm sure this is a little bit overwhelming because there's many topics and it's a big framework, but I hope you got a little bit of an overview of the different areas. There is, of course, a summary of that, which is this table of areas and aspects, and you will also get it as a handout after the masterclass. Now I would like to tell you more about the actual framework application. For that, I would like to start with a scenario. Maria is a design manager at a medium-sized company. She has transitioned from a designer role into a leadership position, and now she has many questions. What should she focus on? Which topics should she bring forward? And what is expected from her? She hears of the design leadership framework and first uses it to get more familiar with the different areas and aspects of design leadership. As a next step, Maria is doing an assessment of the current state of her design team in a workshop. So the design team comes together and they are discussing and collecting which areas and aspects are doing well, which aspects are working not so well, what are the biggest pain points of the team, and do we have blind spots? As a next step, they are doing a team assessment of the actual areas of design leadership. So it's more of a high-level perspective as a first step. And here we are using this type of scale where we have on the left side the areas of design leadership, and here we have a scale going from so-so to great. And in the team workshop now, they are doing a quick team assessment that revealed that operations are going okay, good. The experience and the strategy area are doing very good. And they actually need improvement in the way the design team is established throughout the enterprise. So as a next step, based on this overall assessment, they are going a little bit deeper and selecting and prioritizing the aspects that they want to work on next. And this could look, for instance, like this. In this case, the team has selected 5 aspects to work on, which is define design workflow and the work environment, promote the design capabilities better to get a better standing as a design team in the enterprise, and also to develop the team culture and to care more about how talent growth can happen in the team. Afterwards, Maria sets up a design program with several initiatives and ideas to improve the identified challenges. And with the help of this workshop and the framework, she has developed a clear vision what to work on next and how to put this into goals and KPIs. Important is that she repeats this process regularly, once or twice a year, to maybe prioritize new aspects, to track how she is doing with the current design program initiatives, and so on. Here we see an example where I did a similar process like the one I just described, together with the design team at Adventure GmbH in Berlin. And you can see here some examples of the team discussion, quick assessment, and also the team working on ideas how to improve their prioritized aspects. There are some more ways how the design leadership framework can be applied and used in organizations. At first, I would like to show you how you can find a better focus for your work as a design leader by using strategic goals as a way to prioritize important aspects. So imagine you have the framework and you have a strategic goal. For instance, you want to deliver better UX in your design team or product development. Then you could, for instance, say, okay, these are some of the aspects that we need to focus on. So we want to maybe improve our design workflow. We want to look at all the aspects from the experience area. And maybe we need to develop a better team culture where designers, for instance, are able to give each other better feedback, where managers can handle problems better, and where we can foster the talent growth of our designer pool much better so that they can deliver better UX. Other example could be you want to scale design, then maybe you want to focus on the operations part and the team part, and for instance, things that make collaborative work much easier, like design principles or design language. And the last example is, for instance, you have the problem that in your design team, you don't have enough talent, so you want to attract more talent. So you could focus, for instance, on developing a better team culture and to foster, again, the talent growth, to make it easier for people who already work with you to, for instance, recommend you as an employer. And also you want to maybe build some outside design reputation as a team so that interesting candidates can even find you or say, okay, they're doing interesting stuff, maybe I want to work there. So these were some examples for strategic goals. And something you can also do is to use the framework for a more structured assessment. This is a schematic representation based on a project example by Tomomi Sasaki from last year, who has worked with the framework for a client. And the key idea here is that you can use the framework as a kind of dashboard. So you're using the different aspects of the framework and, for instance, say for each aspect, what is the current state? Where are we? Is everything fine? Do we have any problems? And then you can monitor that closely. And lastly, you can use the framework as a knowledge base. So more like as a frame for your knowledge base. So we could, for instance, ask for every aspect, what is this aspect about? what are best practices, what are possible business partners, and where can I learn more. So the structure of the framework can give you something to put your own knowledge in kind of the boxes that the framework provides. I am doing that myself continuously, and this is, for instance, an example from my own collection where I am collecting for one aspect. So this is the aspect of fostering talent growth, and I'm collecting what this aspect is about, what are application examples, what are methods, theories behind this aspect. And this is my collection, and I have also heard from other design leaders who made their collections. For instance, I have heard from design leaders using the framework to set up, for instance, a Trello board with one card for each aspect, and then writing down in the Trello card the notes about their work or their team, or they're putting some interesting resources in there. So summarizing this, the application of the framework is a typical process of assessment with self-reflection, surveys or team reflection, identifying areas that need improvement based on strategic goals, pain points and KPIs, and driving organizational change by building a design program and tracking success. So that was the overview for the design leadership framework, which provides a holistic and structured overview, which works as a tool to analyze and plan design leadership initiatives, and which can help strategic decision making. If you liked what you've seen today and you would like to apply the framework in your design team, there's a couple of things I can support you with. First, I'm available for trainings, masterclasses and lectures about design leadership or customer experience design, and I'm also supporting design leaders and their teams as a workshop facilitator and consultant. My upcoming endeavor is to consolidate the knowledge and material I have researched around the topic of design leadership and to put it into something that I would call a workbook for design leaders. My vision for this book is to give an overview of best practices and examples for each aspect of the framework, and also to provide activities for reflection and self-assessment. Okay, we have reached the end of today's masterclass, and I want to say that I'm very much looking forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn or other channels. I'm always curious to hear how it's going. If, for instance, you are applying the framework in your team, and you can send me feedback or recommendations, what I should include in my work. And I'm always very thankful for that. All I have left to say is thank you very much for taking part in this masterclass today, and I hope to see you again at the next Intersection conference. Thank you.